Hello, friends. Let's see. I'm getting everything all set up here. Welcome as we're waiting for others to show up to hop on to our call. I just want to take a moment to welcome everyone to being here. I'm so incredibly excited to spend the next amount of time with you. I never know. I try to go, try to go as long as I can, about 45, 50 minutes, answer some questions. My name is Amy Boswinkle. I am one of the Pompa program health coaches. Welcome to our little corner of the internet where we talk about all things emotional health. As Dr. Pompa talks about the three-legged stool, right? The physical, the mental, and the mental, emotional, and the environmental stressors. I try to bring some context, bring some clarity, bring some aha insight and inspiration into the world of emotional intelligence and mindset practices. So welcome to today. We are stamping our moment in time, June 25, 2024. So incredibly excited to spend today with you. I see so many of you hopping on. There may be more. I saw that there were quite a number who wanted to join today. Oh my goodness, how amazing. And absolutely thrilled that more and more of you keep showing up every week. And for those of you catching the replay, we are so happy that you are here too. So we're going to go ahead and begin. I've said a few things for a couple of minutes here. For those of you, hopping on here towards the middle, if you like what you heard, please know just that gentle, beautiful, sweet reminder that over the weekend, we do have the 48 hours where you can watch the replays of all of the webinars that all of our wonderful, amazing, very highly educated health coaches can provide to each and every one of you. So today we are talking about the emotional and physical health connection inside of the body. And as I was preparing this morning, I'm always spending time throughout my week writing things down that I want to share with everybody. But what really kept coming through me is I'm journaling and I'm writing and I'm saying my prayers for the morning for all of us who are going to be here, for all of my clients, for those of us who are going to be watching the replay, is it's time to get healthy in all areas of our life. It was really a really strong messaging that kept coming through me. It's time to get healthy in all areas of our life, right? So, when we were looking at the portal and inside of it is that downloadables and exercises section. The fourth section down, I believe, is the one labeled the vision board, right? And if any of you have ever watched that video Dr. Pompa does and taken some time to journal on the vision board of the different areas of your life, the physical areas, the how you see relationships, how you see money, how you see all of these different things, right? It's time for us to get healthy in all areas of our life. And so it's time to begin to open up our mind and to see the bigger picture. Many times in my own healing journey, what I found is that, I become narrowly focused on something that is going wrong in my life. And I close my mind, I close my eyes, I close my voice, I close my heart to all of the really amazing, wonderful things that I have going on in my life. And I become incredibly laser focused on this one little thing that's going wrong. And I think that that's actually pretty normal. I mean, I don't know about any of you, but when I was going to school growing up, I certainly did not have an opportunity to join a class on how to manage your emotions or how to understand emotions or how are your emotions connected to your physical health or anything like that. I imagine many of you feel the same, but perhaps you did go to a school where it helped you to connect some dots, connect a gap where you're not standing on one side of the river trying to understand how to get to the other side of the river where it's very plush and beautiful and green and, there's life and butterflies and flowers and things like that. There's a time in my life where I felt like I was standing on the drab side of the river, always looking over to the beautiful side of the river. But the beautiful gift is, there's always a path, there's always a trail, there's always a way to jump over maybe a more narrow part of the river to make it to the other side if we can open up our eyes and be able to begin to see the bigger picture. So how do we begin to be able to see the bigger picture? In my experience, it's about really beginning to understand the beautiful way that the body has been made, right? When we are made, we have a brain stem that is connected to our spinal cord. And that spinal cord is where we hold all of the different feelings that we have inside of our life. Whenever we get some kind of news that makes us feel excited, when we get news that make us feel sad, when we get news that kind of stress us out a little bit, there is a feeling, there is a sensation that goes up and down that spinal cord so that we can learn to navigate the experience that we're walking through. Now, we can label our different experiences as positive or negative, right? And rightfully so, because some things feel really good and other things feel really bad. But to the body certainly doesn't understand the difference between a good feeling or a bad feeling. It just understands, wow, this is a really intense sensation. So the body is going to begin to respond accordingly to that, right? And the body is adaptable. The really beautiful part to the body is it's incredibly adaptable. We were made to be able to withstand stress and things like that in our life. It's just whenever the stressor becomes long formed, we might call it traumatic, we might call it big, we might call it a black hole, right? Like we might call it a lot of different words, that the body becomes used to and conditioned to seeing certain experiences in a certain way. And the really amazing part about the brain and the way that some of the neurochemicals, all of the neurochemicals, not some of them, but the neurochemicals work in the body is to make sure that we continue to create certain experiences in our life. So one such chemical that the brain creates is a chemical called dopamine. And dopamine doesn't understand the difference between a good feeling or a bad feeling. It wants to feel good. So whenever it gets a little hit of something that allows the body to feel good for a certain period of time, it becomes addicted to that, and it wants to recreate that feeling and that sensation over and over and over and over and over again. A way that I can bring some context into how dopamine works might be in the way that some of us view addictions in some way, right? Like if you've ever known anyone to be addicted to something in some way, some form, right? They feel one way the first time they utilize something that creates an altering experience inside of their body, and they're continually chasing that feeling over and over and over again, trying to recreate it because there's a small amount of dopamine that gets released in the brain whenever the person begins to think about the food that they may be addicted to, or the alcohol they may be addicted to, or the drugs they may be addicted to, or the overspending they may be addicted to. There are all kinds of addictions on this planet, friends. And one of the biggest addictions I've personally ever come across is our addiction to our overthinking, right? Is our addiction to our overthinking. For those of you who attended the talk last week, I talked about how, mindfulness is easy. It's remembering to be mindful that is the harder part, right? And remembering that it is 100% okay and actually even powerful and can service us in an incredibly positive and beneficial way if we take some time to just pause for a moment, connect to some kind of breathing technique. Last week, we talked about the 5-5-7 breath. I talk about those pretty frequently inside of my webinars, right? Connect to a breath, go for a walk, sit in silence. If we're surrounded by people, if we have children around us that need our attention, we can pause for a moment. We can go in the restroom, close the door, even if it's just for 30 seconds, to give ourselves a moment of time of connecting back into ourselves so that all of these sensors, right, the brain stem isn't creating that feeling that's going up and down the spine inside of the body, allowing for those small dopamine hits to go out into the world so that we're continually creating the things that make us feel good. Now, like I said, those dopamine hits they don't understand the difference between a positive feeling and a negative feeling, right? So if we have grown up in a traumatic circumstance in our life, meaning that we were surrounded by chaos rather than peace growing up, then we will become used to creating scenarios where chaos allows that dopamine hit to go into the body. And that's what the dopamine is continually chasing: chaos, chaos, chaos. And cognitively, when we're talking to one another, we're like, hey, I don't like this. I don't like the way that this makes me feel. This doesn't feel good. And right, like at a logical level, we all can completely and totally understand that, yes, I get it. We do not like the way that chaos feels. We don't like it when people are arguing with one another, when people are talking over one another, when we're treating one another a particular way because we're in our reactive state of being rather than our reflective state of being, right? But the brain doesn't understand that difference. That dopamine hit is going to be continually chasing chaos over and over and over and over again until we connect into a mindfulness practice that allows us to calm down for a moment. And if we have continually practiced this unconsciously, okay, I'm certainly not saying that we are conscious and aware of these things until we actually become conscious and aware of these things, until we begin to practice and connect into that, right? Like to remember to be mindful. And so when we're creating these various states of chaos, and that might feel like shame, that might feel like guilt, that might feel like fear, that might feel like frustration, anger, bitterness, all sorts of different feelings that feel very heavy inside of the body. In time, those emotional feelings begin to get various different other hormones in the body, such as our adrenal glands emit these hormones, and not just these alone. These are ones that I bring up pretty regularly: cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline, aldosterone in the body. Those hormones get emitted by our adrenal glands, so our heart literally doesn't have a heart attack. And when we're continually in that fight or flight state of being, we begin to affect our physical health because our mindset might be continually thinking about, oh my gosh, I don't like being around this particular family member. I have to go take someone, I have to go and take some family member to a doctor appointment or to the grocery store. I have to be around whomever is creating some sort of dissonance where we are out of coherence with our heart's greatest frequencies, which is freedom, which is inner peace, which is joy, which is happiness, right? Which is allows us to connect into our creative self when all of those things have been silenced, right? It's hard to be connected into our creative self, and we're in our survival self, our survival mode self, just trying to get through these different things. And as these different physical stressors connect into our endocrine system, because the brain is thinking a thought and that brain stem is sending the signal down the spine is, right, like emitting these signals into the body is responding by endocrine system function. And our endocrine system function is our hormones in our body, the way that our hormones are communicating to one another. And as the hormones begin communicating to one another, they begin to emit various different hormones in the body. And as those stress levels continue over and over and over and over again, it creates dysbiosis in our physical health. In time, things like anxiety will occur. In time, not being able to let go will occur. In time, we will create depression at a physical level. In time, we will create gut dysbiosis or gut health issues in time, right? Like all of these things have this connection. And when I really began studying the emotional components to health, like I've mentioned to you all before, these huge aha moments kept going on in my life because I came from an upbringing of chaos inside of my family. I did not grow up in a household where I felt safe. I'm not going to say that I didn't because I was young enough. I didn't know the difference, but chaos was my safety, right? It wasn't until I became much, much older and began to deal with my own personal health issues, mental and emotional issues and things like that, and began studying things like neuroplasticity and how to rewire the mind, that I began to have all of these aha moments. And as I began to learn that, everything began to make sense, right? If I am feeling a certain way, if my brain has been conditioned a certain way, because it seemed normal to me in my life and my upbringing and the way that I went about life. And I reacted as my reactionary self out in life a particular way, and it made my body feel a certain way, right? As I stated before, I certainly didn't go to a school where I took some sort of classes on how to manage my emotions and become my most emotional, intelligent self. I lived in a world of emotional immaturity is the word that I use it for myself. You can call it what you choose to call it, but my emotions weren't fully formed. I would feel these really big emotions, and they would, allow me to go down this rabbit hole of feeling the way that I felt, and I felt like life was chaos and out of control. Now, it may not be connected to emotional traumas or chaos or stressors or things like that. Perhaps you have a long-standing emotional health issues that in time it was no longer connected to. There's three different, very distinct parts of a human being at an emotional level, right? There's the part of us whenever we go through an experience, and the first thing that we connect into whenever we go through something new is the mood that it creates in our internal world, right? But in time, whenever we're dealing with a particular health issues, and we may not even be connected to the emotional stressors that got us to where that led us in time. And we just may realize one day we wake up and we just do not feel good. And it was a progression of steps over time to where it became something that overtook us. And at that point in time, it's no longer a mood, because it's not an experience that's, allowing a swaying of how we're feeling in our internal world. It has become connected to the second component of human emotion on the internal world, where it's become a temperament, right? We're beginning to create an identity of unhappiness, depression, sadness. We become, right? We're at the beginning stages. It becomes our general temperament. We're no longer our happy-go-lucky self or our joyful self or the self who connected into creativity and painted or created things or had a wild and vivid imagination or who loved to color. Any of those things that you used to love to do become a little bit more subdued, a little bit more withdrawn. That mood doesn't change too much. You might be connected in that frequency, that energetic exchange of the emotions that are being held inside of our body, of not being able to move forward above a certain temperament, right? And then in time, our identity begins to shift to where we become a personality. We become the identity of the things that are holding us back, right? These are all unconscious things. I'm bringing them forward into a conversation that we can all have together so that we can gain greater awareness of like, oh my gosh, yes, I can see actually where I'm being the identity of the thing that is actually holding me back, rather than choosing to connect into the neuroplasticity of the brain by having really powerful conversations, by connecting into really powerful tools, by creating very powerful boundaries that work really well for us around people, places, and things that allow us to stay in our inner world of peace, trying to be inside of this amazing space inside of our heart. Right? And so as we're beginning to shift in this and become this personality, I feel very confident and strongly for those of us who choose a desire to change something inside of our life, and we ask our God, higher power, whatever your word is, for something that you believe is greater than yourself. I know there's a lot of different belief systems inside of Pompa program, and I respect and honor and love every single one of those beliefs. I might say the word God because that is my belief. I mean, no disrespect when I say that, right? But we ask for help, and then all of a sudden the help arrives. You might begin seeing Dr. Pompa's videos or someone else who has knowledge. You might have been led to this particular conversation with me. You watch a different health coach's webinar, you get led. People just come into your life, and you begin to see shifts and you begin to see changes and you begin to see, the world begins to open at a different level. And you connect into, and one of the biggest spaces that I feel we can create so much more information, knowledge, resources is this space of mental and emotional health, so that we can continue to grow into our most emotionally mature self, become more emotionally intelligent, so that as life is being life, because that's the thing, is that every morning when our eyes pop open and we wake up and we go out into the day, we have control over certain things, and there are other things we have no control over. We have no control over if we receive a phone call that is going to change the trajectory of our day that day or not, right? Life is always going to be throwing us curveballs. It's learning how to navigate how we make it through those curveballs. So I want to back up just for a moment. When we've been living in this world of chaos, when we've been living in this world of, I don't feel well, we're being the identity of our illness, and those feelings are going down the spine, going into the body, and the hormonal body is beginning to communicate with one another. One really important thing that I always love to bring into conversations whenever it's like being asked of me to bring into the conversation is the various larger endocrine systems inside of the human body, right? So we have our root or our sacral chakra, if we're looking at it through the lens of chakras and emotional intelligence, energetics, things like that. These are all just different schools of thought, different sciences, right? Because conventional medicine here in the United States is one school of thought. It is a science, but there are other schools of thought and other sciences out there that see a bigger picture, not just looking at the symptom. There are other schools of thought that actually look at root causes. So that's what I'm going to bring into this conversation at an energetic level, right? So the root chakra is connected into our adrenal glands, right? And I talk about those frequently. It's the fight or flight response. It's our stress glands. It's how we navigate stress in our world. It's what puts out the hormones, adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol, aldosterone. Those aren't the only hormones that the adrenal glands emit. It's just, those are the ones that, help to navigate how our heart handles stress, so we literally don't have a heart attack. So connecting into that and creating some kind of a grounding practice for yourself, something where you can, maybe you're just sitting in silence. Maybe you're sitting down with a journal, asking yourself, how do I get healthy in all areas of my life? How do I choose to do that? What are some of the steps that I can take to get there? Literally taking the time, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. It can be an hour long if you have that much time, right? But asking ourselves questions so we can actually tap into and connect into the emotion that is driving the stressor, right? And then we move into the sacral chakra. We're moving up into the sacral chakra. These are our reproductive hormones, right? Testosterone, estrogen, progesterone levels. There are other hormones in this particular area of our life, but this is where we're connected into our personal power, being a very strong woman, being a very strong man, being the man who is taking care of the household. Men hold certain roles, in my opinion, women hold certain roles, in my opinion, but the lines have been crossed. And like, women are doing more things that men have done. Men are doing more things that women have done, and these lines are getting crossed. I'm not saying that those things are bad or wrong or incorrect in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying it can create dysbiosis in some way, shape, or form in some people's lives. For women, this can change menstrual cycles. It can change mood. For men, it can change mood. It can create more depression, right? As we're moving up into the solar plexus, this is where we're connected into our insulin levels. Our insulin levels are connected into our pancreas. This is where we're connected into food and how we see food choices and what types of foods we are choosing to fuel our body, because that's what food is meant for. Food is meant for fuel for the body. And when we're eating too many sugars, too many carbohydrates, too many bad fats, the seed oils and things like that, all of those sorts of foods and nutrients get stored as fat inside of our body. And fat is just unused energy. That's all it is, right? Like if we can change the mindset, we can literally sometimes weight loss resistance can be incredibly connected into weight loss. Oops, don't know where we went, friends. Oh, friends, I'm so sorry. Let me see where we are. Okay. My computer just did something very, very weird. Thank you so much for your patience. I am so not the most technologically advanced person on this planet. So let me see if I can collect my thoughts, take a deep breath. Thank you, my love. Connect into calming down for a moment and get back into where we were, right? So we're talking about the solar plexus. We're talking about food choices. So when we can connect into our most emotionally intelligent self, if we're dealing with weight loss resistance, right, we can create those mental rehearsals. Mental rehearsals are literally mentally putting ourselves in a space where we can see ourselves thinner, where we're seeing ourselves wearing our most beautiful clothes, the things that make us feel like really, really good in our skin, where we're feeling really happy and very beautiful on those sorts of days, and connecting into that over and over and over and over and over again. Yes, food choices are important, but also the mindset behind it can change the trajectory of weight loss resistance too, right? And so making sure that we're being kind to our pancreas, being kind to our insulin levels, because those insulin levels can spike throughout the day as we're making the various food choices based on, the stress that we're feeling inside of that root inside of the adrenal glands. And we move up into our heart, and our heart is connected to our thymus, right? So at this level, when we've been dealing with stress long enough, where it's literally connecting to our thymus. Our thymus is our motherboard, our most powerful connective tool into our immune system, right? So when we have been dealing with stress and those hormone levels at the root chakra level, where it's connected into the adrenal glands, and we're feeling out of our power as our most powerful self as a woman, or our most powerful self as a man, right? And we're getting disconnected by that. We're connecting into the insulin levels, and it doesn't always necessarily at the solar plexus chakra level have to be connected into the food choices that we're making. Power means that we may be trying to seek power outside of ourselves by spending money too much, or we might be connected into drinking alcohol a little bit more often than what we desire to, or right, like walking down those paths of things that create addiction, where the dopamine inside of the mind is going off, because the dopamine doesn't understand the difference between, something that is positive or something that's keeping us in chaos, right? So at this level, when we're creating stressors here, we're affecting our thymus, which is our immune function, right? And then we begin to move up into the throat chakra, and the throat chakra is connected to our thyroid gland. How many people on this planet have different dysbioses with their thyroid? And, Dr. Pompa has created such amazing amazing protocols. And one of those is the thyroid protocol, or, talking with your coach more. Even if we have a healthy thyroid where the levels are completely normal, we live in a very toxic world. We are breathing in toxic air. There are air pollutants. I'm on a computer right now. Most likely you're on a computer or a cell phone watching me. And we are having these, conversations and these EMFs, and we do ourselves to protect ourselves with grounding mats and, all the different things that we do to protect ourselves from those things. But the thing is that the thyroid is very sensitive. So connecting in and making sure that we're supporting our thyroid, supporting our metabolism, supporting our that motherboard for our energy and the way that our mind thinks and our depression levels and how we can actually feel really calm when we're creating boundaries rather than feeling really scattered and afraid, because sometimes we create boundaries, we know we need them, they sound good internally, but to say them to another person where we have literally created a particular story, there's a good word, there's a good way to put it, a story that things go a certain way inside of our life. These are very habituated. We create these over time and they're unconscious until we have very powerful conversations where we bring these really powerful connections to the surface that we begin to become conscious about them, right? And so then also, right, what else is as the spinal cord emitting those electrical impulses known as feelings into the body, it goes up into our third eye chakra. That third eye chakra is connected into our pineal gland, into our pituitary gland, pineal gland. My apologies. I always get these two mixed up. Right. And the pineal gland is connected into like our sleep and our mood and our depression and happiness and things of that nature. Right. And then our crown chakra connected into that pituitary, telling the body what is a good feeling to have, what is a bad feeling to have, how we navigate our life, the habituated feelings and thoughts that we have created through various stories we have told ourselves throughout our life, right? So when the dysbiosis inside of the endocrine system, which I just shared with everybody, those are the 7 biggest areas of the endocrine system inside of our body. There are other, obviously, parts of the body where the endocrine system or the hormones communicate with one another, but those are the major ones. It takes a moment in time where possibly someone, something, some book, some podcast, something greater than ourselves comes into our life, a particular phrase is said, and something begins to flip the switch inside of us. We begin to see or understand and connect into that the way that we have been navigating life possibly wasn't always the only way that we could have been navigating life at that particular moment in time, right? There are always options. I feel very strongly there are a million different paths to the same destination, and everybody's path looks different, but it is exact, right, true, and amazing, and just right for each individual person. Because we have to remember there are like so many billions of people on this planet, and each individual human being on this planet has their own unique belief system that is exact, right, and true for them. And that doesn't make it wrong in any way, shape, or form. It's just that if we can't find a way, if we're continually butting heads with these different belief systems, can we take that step back and begin to navigate this space and this place from a lens of our most reflective self, and what can we do to navigate this situation differently? What can I do to see this differently? What can I do different? What is a different behavior that I can create for myself so that I can begin to create neuroplasticity inside of my brain? Neuroplasticity, this is not a dictionary definition. This is my own personal definition. Neuroplasticity is the rewiring of the mind and being able to tell ourselves a different way to see and experience, whether we are literally like saying a mantra over and over and over again, we're creating a journaling sequence for ourselves, we're doing a different behavior. Instead of driving one way home, we drive a different way home. Instead of, driving straight home, we stop off at the gym and then we go home, right? Like all of these different things that we do for ourselves to create a different behavior. And the brain is so plastic. It has the ability to shift and mold and change and have a different type of perception. But we have to do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And the one thing that I've personally learned in my own journey is that it is a bit frustrating, and I get a little bit angry at my own self because it takes quite a bit of time with certain experiences and certain beliefs and certain behaviors I have created in order for my brain to click and get it. Because I want fast. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like one of the American, and I'm not saying every American, I'm just saying this is in general, this isn't everyone, so this might not apply to you, but in general, I live in the United States, so I feel I can confidently say this because I understand the culture in which I grew up in and the states that I have grown up in and the belief systems that I have seen here in the United States, that we are conditioned to arrive at certain places very, very quickly. Now, yes, we understand that there's a learning curve. We have to learn something new. We have to go down a certain path, right? But we can go into a restaurant and normally the waitress will come right away, take a drink order, take a food order, and the food will arrive maybe 10 or 15 minutes. If it begins to become, maybe it's a nicer restaurant, it takes a little bit longer. You've ordered something that takes just a little bit longer period of time. But when it begins to get to that 30-minute mark or that 45-minute mark, right? I don't know about you, it's begin to get a little bit antsy. What's going on? Has something happened? Are there cooks in the kitchen? You know, all of those things. We go to the gas station, we insert our debit card, our credit card, we go inside, we pay, we get gas, we pump it, we're on our way, right? We don't have to wait for someone to come out and pump our gas for us any longer. And maybe there's 20 pumps, and if we had to wait for one person to make it all the way over to us, and maybe that would take an hour, right? Like, how would we feel? We can sometimes, whenever we're sick, go and get some kind of a prescription to make us feel better. And in some cases, right? I'm not saying in every case, in some cases, it takes 7 to 10 to 14 days and we begin to feel better. But when it begins to take weeks and months and years, we might become a little bit disenchanted. And the only reason that I have come to learn because of that is because we need to, in my opinion, stop, pause, write down the celebrations and the wins for the day. And if we couldn't find a celebration or a win for the day, could that be a practice that we connect into tomorrow? Because if all we're doing is seeing all the things that are going wrong in our life, with our health, with the right, like, and we're missing, because I promise you, and every single day there is a bright, shining light. There's at least one or more in each and every one of our days, but we might be missing it, or we might be lightly stepping upon it to focus on, but these are all the things that are still going wrong. And I'm not saying that it's bad or it's wrong to be connected and have a desire to continue to change the things that still aren't exactly the way that we want. We absolutely get to connect into that and say, I desire more. I desire my best self. I desire my best smile. I desire my best energy. I desire all of these things. But when we're continually dismissing the small wins that we've made to actually allow that new feeling to be rewired into that brainstem, to go down into the spinal cord, so that the spinal cord begins to emit these new feelings of positivity, of inner peace, of freedom, of happiness, of joy inside of our body, so we actually begin to vibrate at a higher frequency, and we go out into life and we begin to see more good and 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 more good. When I first began doing this work, friends, one thing I had no idea. I didn't think I was a negative person, but I came to realize I was a pretty negative person to myself. I could see the good in other people, and I'm not saying that I was perfect, because I'm certainly not a perfect human being by any stretch of the imagination at all. But I began to recognize how many negative thoughts and negative stories I told myself on a daily basis. And it went on for days and days and days and days. And I became incredibly frustrated with my own self, right? But it was also incredibly eye-opening, because without those really powerful moments of being able to see myself incredibly clearly, I never would have become the person I am today, having this incredibly powerful conversation with each and every one of you. And for that, I am incredibly grateful. I am incredibly grateful that we get to have these really powerful conversations so that we can begin to see, how do I begin to get healthy in all areas of my life? And if that feels too big right now, pick the one area of your life that you would like to see improvement in, but have space for the other areas of life to begin to spread some wings and to come into that consciousness so that we can connect into those spaces and places that make us be our truest and freest and have the most inner peace inside of our heart self, where we're literally connected into our soul and our soul's desire to continue to go and do whatever it is we feel called to in life. The one really, there's more than one, but one really amazing thing that I see in each and every one of you is that you have something driving you forward, why you're here, why you're here, why you're here. You want to make an impact on other people's lives once you yourself have found a particular way to move forward. For some of you, you have, you want to just have the energy to be there for your family. You want to be able to, connect back into the happiness that you once had. You want to be able to go on races, like whether that's running races or walking races, bicycle races, all of these different things that your heart and your soul truly desires. And so you continue to come and show up day after day after day after day after day after day after day. And that says so much about each and every one of you, friends, right? So these are the way that our emotions are connected into our physical self. We feel these feelings. We're right? Like we know we're feeling something, but we don't realize that all of these feelings are connected into chemical responses inside of our endocrine system, AKA our hormonal body. And our hormones are communicating the way that we are feeling inside of our body, creating dysbiosis inside of our physical health. So the path to rewiring this is simple. Like I said, it's about being mindful, creating mindfulness practices. Yes, the physical part is so important too. The fuel that we're putting inside of our body, the choices we're making with this fuel, if we're choosing to fast or not fast, to create autophagy or to eat, or, if we're doing the detox cycles, body prep phase, body phase, brain phase, if you're doing various protocols, all of those get to the root, right? But we can drive these particular results and make them exponentially greater by connecting into the way that our mind is seeing particular events, by emotionally growing, creating maturity inside of our emotions so that we become our most emotionally intelligent self. Now, I do see questions. I'm gonna hop into that. I see your comments. I'm certainly not ignoring any one of you. I'm gonna come to those in just a moment. There's one last thing, right? So one tool that I want to share with you that you can connect into is, when it is a possibility, whether that's today or in the next 48 hours. And why is it important within the next 48 hours? Because after a particular period of time, something that feels important to us, if we don't act upon it pretty quickly, it becomes something that gets put on the back burner, that creates a habituated, I should be doing, right? Like right? Like, and we create it as a thought on the back burner that becomes a habit in time. The only way to rewire and recondition and create a new habit is to take action. It's the only way. I've not found another way. Now, that action could be a mental rehearsal because maybe for some of us, it's hard to walk. We're experiencing joint pain or autoimmune condition, flare-ups and things of that nature. I get it, but if we can go out, take that action physically, and if you can't connect into a mental rehearsal is something that you practice inside of your mind as if it's real. Because there have been literally scientific studies that 3 different groups of people, let me pick an example. Let's say people who want to play an instrument, let's say the violin, for example, right? And where you're literally having to use the fine motor skills of your fingers to be able to, right, like play the violin or to play the piano, something of that nature, right? There was a study where they connected into the people who actually physically practiced the finger, moving the fingers, manipulating the fine motor skills, connecting into exercises. There was the group who only mentally rehearsed this, meaning they didn't physically do it, but they mentally rehearsed as if they did it. And then there's the group who did nothing at all. And there was incredible improvement in the people who actually took physical action against it. They saw a 34% increase in their fine motor skills, the people who actually practiced that. However, the people who did the mental rehearsal, they saw their fine motor skills improved by 22%. 22%. Isn't that amazing? How powerful our mind is when we actually put our mind to something. They saw a 22% improvement in their fine motor skills just by mentally rehearsing this. And the people who did nothing at all, who just kind of thought about it on the back burner, there was no improvement. Right? So I wanted to bring that into the conversation. Mental rehearsals can be really important. Writing something down, right? If it's time for us to get healthy in all areas of our life, what are these areas for you? Or what is the one area? If all areas seems just too big right now, that's Amy, that's too big of an umbrella. I can't do it. Okay, what's the one area? And what actions can you take to get yourself there? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to see. Oh, no worries. Sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. So perfect. The parasympathetic nervous system is when we can connect into certain experiences where we can find a calming effect to it, right? So if we live in a chaos type of experience, can we find a way to navigate that experience from a calmer, more reflective space? The sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight, right? Like we're literally like going. Parasympathetic, it's not that we're not dealing with the stress, but it's when we're connected into a more reflective or kind of calmer state of being. That was a really, really great question. You're so welcome. You're so welcome, lovely. So happy that you're here. Thank you for all the comments and questions. If I say happy things to myself, it feels fake. I can't say it and mean it anymore. It makes me think I'm never going to get better. So that's really powerful, my beautiful friend, because that's when I talk about the space where there is a space where we have taught ourselves so much to believe a certain thing that when we begin to tell ourselves a particular mantra, that the brain will not believe it. It's called the imitation effect or something to that, right? Like we literally believe that we literally believe that we are not being true to ourselves, because that is how powerful the brain is. So when I talk about how I became angry, when I really actually began to see how negative or how my particular belief system was so rigid, that's what I mean by that. So I 100% get what you're saying. And it is going beyond where the brain begins to say, this isn't true, this isn't true, this feels fake, this feels fake, this feels fake, this feels fake, like continuing past that, because there is truly a place that exists past that. And I'm only telling you that from personal experience. And it feels really weird to get there. Where can I learn more about neuroplasticity without paying a lot of money for a program? Lovely question, my friend. So one of the most powerful books that I've personally ever read, I have it right there on my lap and it fell on the floor. So one moment while I pick it up. This particular book I have read over and over and over again, and I will for the rest of my life. It is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Relatively inexpensive book. $16.99 is what I see, but you might be able to buy it used on Amazon for much cheaper or find it at a garage or a yard sale, who knows. But that is one of the most powerful books I've personally ever read. At the end of the book, Dr. Joe Dispenza has various guided meditations and neuroplasticity tools and techniques that can guide you through rewiring. So this is one of my personal favorites. Also, EMDR, you can go onto YouTube, and YouTube, you can find free things. So if you want to learn a little bit more about things like NLP, which stands for neuro-linguistic programming, that's literally like the rewiring of the mind. There are some really powerful videos there. Also on YouTube, you can find videos on EMDR, sensitivity rewiring, like moving the eyes to desensitize certain belief systems to create neuroplasticity inside of the brain. It's a great question, my lovely. Thank you for that. You are helpful and generous with your own vulnerability. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. I've gone through this issue multiple times throughout my life. That's why I don't believe it anymore. There's always a relapse. I get it. Number one, I feel you very deeply, lovely. I do. And I wish I understood why we are to have repetitive lessons that we're here to gain wisdom from when they feel so painful. If I could take that part away and do that part for all of you, I would, because I know how hard this work is. And I wish that I could do that work for each and every one of you, but then I'd be taking away from people's personal experiences. So please just know that when it's time to hop back up on that horse, if you're feeling a little disenchanted or disappointed or discouraged or whatever, there's a reason for that. I know it doesn't feel pleasant, but when it feels ready for you to get back up on that horse and try again, there is a small lesson that was learned in the process that will get you farther this time than it did the last. Can we see that? Is it possible, right? Like, is there a possibility for me to actually see, oh, I actually made it this much farther this time before it felt really heavy and I needed to take a break? So I hear you, sending so much love, truly. What if you are stuck in sympathetic? Oh, that's a great question. All right, so that is, you guys ask the best questions. I love it. When we're stuck in sympathetic, the hardest part truly is learning how to slow down. Literally learning how to slow down. So it's going to feel foreign. It's going to feel like we cannot do it. It's going to feel like we don't have time for it. Our mind is going to create a lot of different scenarios regarding this. And it is about finding the pockets of time that we all have to take a walk in nature, perhaps. I'm just creating some suggestions here. And be connected rather than in our mind and in our head. Can we be connected into our five senses? As I'm walking, can I smell, right? Can I literally consciously be like, What am I smelling right now? How does the breeze feel on my skin? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I tasting? Right? Like we become so disconnected because our mind takes over that we're completely disconnected from our most intuitive senses, which is our five senses, and some say sixth sense even, right? But when we're connected into our five senses, I personally believe that sixth sense becomes much more powerful. Other things that can help to get out of the sympathetic state in the Pompa program store is a vibrant blue essential oil called parasympathetic. And you can rub a couple of drops behind your ear, the parasympathetic inside of the Pompa program. It's the Vibrant Blue Oils Parasympathetic Essential Oil. It could be really, really powerful. All right, my lovelies, I don't have too much time left before the next webinar will begin, but I will do my best. When I do that, my mind is solving, quiet, causing a loop. It takes practice, and it's frustrating. It takes a lot of practice and dedication and willpower. But once you make it through that first breaking point right in there, it becomes easier and easier and easier in time. It's a practice, just like yoga. We may not be good at yoga the first time we try it, and the 800 millionth time we try it. Every day with yoga, they call it a practice for a reason. Because every day your body is different. Every day your mind is in a different space. Some days your mind is connected into what the instructor is sharing with you, and at other points in time, your mind is going to water and your body is going to be resistant, no matter how seasoned and how many times you've done yoga. Think of it through that lens, because that's how the mind works. It's a practice every day. It's not, we're never going to arrive to perfect. All right, my lovelies. Oh, you're so welcome, my lovely. I love you all so much. Please know that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I pray for each and every one of you every single day. And I love you and I believe in you more than anything. So I have to make my ending because we made it all the way to the hour mark. Can you believe it, friends? Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for staying and being here with me. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I'm so happy that even if I just brought an ounce of positivity or a way to look at something or just a thank you. My love language. When you guys give those hearts to me, that's like, thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time. I have to make this a little bit quick, a little fast goodbye today. Your time is so precious. It means so much to me. It's something that I know that you cannot ever get back. Our time is a very precious resource and a precious commodity. And the fact that each and every one of you, whether you watched me here today live or you watched the replay, it means so much to me that you gave me the most precious gift you could give another human being. And for that, I will have the most amazing day because we were here together. All my love always. See you next week.